I thought it was a simple contract marriage, and we'd go our separate ways when the agreement expired. But I never expected she would cross the line. Do you want to leave me that badly? Clearly, I am your wife. Since you're so eager to leave, then. The silver glint behind her stung my eyes. Only later did I realize I was actually her white moonlight. At the dinner table, I looked at the cold and aloof Yun Ruashi and said expectantly, "Oh, Yun, let's find some time to go to the Civil Affairs Bureau." Her hand, holding chopsticks and picking up food, paused slightly, then returned to normal. "Why go to the Civil Affairs Bureau?" Hearing this, I was dumbfounded. "Hold on, buddy. What do you mean by that?" Her expression didn't look like an act. Could this be the legendary "great people are often forgetful"? I put down my chopsticks and looked up at Yun Ruashi. "CEO Yun, that agreement is about to expire. Let's find some time to get this divorce finalized." She looked calm and collected, but her hand holding the chopsticks tightened slightly. "Aren't there still a few days left?" Her voice was still devoid of emotion, with no discernible change in tone. This was very much in line with her persona, the cold and aloof female CEO, a flower on a high peak. I rubbed my hands together, replying with a hint of excitement in my heart. "It's just that I see you've been quite busy lately. It's better to go earlier, anyway. We'll talk about it when the time comes." She cut me off, her tone slightly hurried. "I'm done eating. I'm going back to my room." She stood up and left. Watching her retreating figure, I felt she seemed a bit rushed. I shook my head, mocking myself inwardly. How could that be? She probably had some unpleasant business at the company. I stood up, cleared the table, and also returned to my room. Mine was on the first floor, while Yin Ruashi's room was on the second. For the past 2 years, we had kept to ourselves, like well water, not interfering with river water. But in the last 6 months, Yin Ruashi would often appear, subtly, around my room. A few times I bumped into her. She seemed flustered, merely saying she was thirsty and came to get water. Of course, I didn't believe her, but I didn't dwell on it, just chalking it up to a rich person's quirk. Although every time, I'd wonder inwardly if she liked me. But this thought was instantly dismissed. Are you kidding? I had at least that much self-awareness. A rich girl falling for a poor guy? That kind of plot only happens in novels. It wouldn't occur in reality, unless Yun Ruashi had something wrong with her head. But from what I could see, there seemed to be nothing wrong with her head. She was quite smart. Otherwise, how could she have gone to the same university as me? She and I were university classmates. I started my own business during my senior year. 3 years ago, just as it was starting to show some promise, my grandfather, my only kindred spirit, was diagnosed with cancer. As he was my only relative, I immediately sold my startup, but the money wasn't enough. There was still a large shortfall for his subsequent treatment costs. That's when Yun Ruashi approached me, promising me $5 million in remuneration if I became her contract husband for 2 years. What else could you expect from CEO? I immediately agreed to such a deal where I clearly got the better end of the bargain. At that time, desperate to pay for my grandfather's treatment, I was extremely short of money. Those $5 million were like a lifeline, but it didn't save me from the dire straits. In the 5th month after signing the agreement with her, my grandfather passed away. I was left all alone. Sigh, thinking about old matters again. How weak of me. I wiped my tears, pulled the covers over myself, and prepared to sleep. Just then, I heard the sound of the doorknob turning. Seriously? A ghost? I turned on the light and walked towards the door. Opening the door, Yin Ruashi came into view. She looked like she had just showered. Her delicate skin was fair with a rosy tint, and her exquisite oval face was slightly flushed. Strands of her hair were still dripping with water, like a lotus emerging from the water. Jiang Chun, the shower head in my room is broken. Can I use your room to take a shower? She glanced at me first, then lowered her head. She was tall, but not as tall as me. From my height, a glance down revealed those towering peaks like a winter snowscape. Damn it, I forgot to turn off the auto-aim. I shifted my gaze. Surprised, I looked at her. Doesn't the guest room have a shower head too? She immediately looked up, her expression still calm. Well, the guest room hasn't been used in a long time. I'm a bit unaccustomed to it. All right, you go ahead. I'll go sit in the living room for a while. I stepped aside, let her go in to shower. Thanks. Now she was being a woman of few words again. I sat on the living room sofa, took out my phone, and planned to scroll through some videos. It's strange. Over the past month, this Yin Ruashi has become increasingly odd. Previously, she'd check in on me every few days. Now, she'd just come straight to my room to shower. Something's not right, very not right. This could easily lead me to suspect she likes me. But after thinking it over, that's impossible. If that reason doesn't hold water, then what else could it be? The video on my phone started playing. Shocking. To avoid paying rent, a woman seduced her landlord and then seized the opportunity to accuse him of rape. The landlord was subsequently sentenced to 3 years. The woman saved 3 years' rent. Rent? Holy crap, it can't be that, can it? I couldn't help but let my mind wander. $5 million for 2 years. She pays year by year, and there's still $2.5 million outstanding. Could it be she doesn't want to pay any more? No wonder I'd often seen her return from the company with a grim face lately. Could her company be having financial problems? She doesn't want to pay the money? The more I thought about it, the more plausible it seemed. Otherwise, why wouldn't she have divorced me sooner? Given her personality, she wouldn't care about these few days. Click! A sound interrupted my thoughts. The bathroom door opened. She emerged, wrapped in a bath towel. I quickly averted my eyes. Under these circumstances, I increasingly felt she was trying to lure me into a compromising situation to avoid paying. For a moment, the video influenced me. Coupled with my long pent-up frustrations, seeing such a steamy scene made me a bit flustered. I quickly took a few deep breaths and spoke first. CEO Yun, have you been troubled by anything recently? Her hand, drying her hair, paused. She sat down a short distance from me. Why do you say that? It's nothing. Well, I noticed you've seemed down lately. Thought it might be about your company. I scooted over, trying to put some distance between us. From the looks of it, the company seemed fine. Defaulting on the payment was unlikely, but I still needed to observe. Waking up this morning, it was another day full of energy. After throwing a few punches at the air, I yelled, "Awesome!" Humming a tune, I finished getting dressed and opened my door. Today, I plan to go to the suburbs to look for a house, since our agreement expires in 3 days. I really didn't want her to suddenly produce some white moonlight who'd yell, "You loser, get out." That would be so awkward. It's better to leave early. However, it seems she doesn't actually have a white moonlight. When we signed the agreement, wasn't it because her family was pressuring her into marriage? I shook my head. Forget it, not thinking about it. What it got to do with me? She's just the boss. In 3 days, it's goodbye to you. However, as soon as I opened my door, I saw Yun Ruashi, also neatly dressed, sitting on the sofa directly opposite my room. She was looking at me. Her eyes held a complex emotion that I couldn't quite decipher. I stood frozen on the spot, only managing an awkward smile after a moment. "Hey, Yun, morning. Are you on holiday today?" Yun Ruashi rose slightly, gently adjusting the hem of her clothes. Are you free today?" My heart skipped a beat. Huh? What does she mean? Is she going to terminate the contract early? That would be great. Various thoughts flashed through my mind. "CEO Yin, what is it?" I try my best to make my voice sound calm. She walked slowly towards me, her gaze lingering on my face for a few seconds. "Let's get breakfast first. We can talk while we eat." I followed her to the dining room, somewhat dazed. The table was already laden with an exquisite spread of breakfast dishes. I tucked in heartily. It would be a waste not to, and besides, a rich person's breakfast is truly something else. Yun Ruashi seemed to have read my mind. She sighed softly. "Do you have any plans for today?" I was thinking of going for a stroll. I put down my cutlery and looked at her. I was actually planning to look for an apartment today, but it's fine. Wherever you want to go, Boss Yun, I'll accompany you." Yun Ruashi's hand, as she was drinking her milk, suddenly paused. She was silent for a moment. "You really want to move out?" "I'm just worried I'll disturb your life." A flicker of displeasure crossed her eyes. "It's no disturbance. Wait until the time is right before moving." For a moment, I couldn't quite figure her out. She was acting strangely. This was the second time she'd gone shopping with me. The first was when we were taking wedding photos. She'd taken one look at my dowdy clothes and dragged me out shopping. I had no idea why she suddenly wanted to go shopping. But, as an employee, fulfilling the boss's request was an undeniable duty. She was my patron, after all. After saying her piece, Yun Ruashi just sat there, not eating anymore. Most of the breakfast ended up in my stomach. When I looked up, I found her gaze fixed on me. I felt a little awkward and chuckled sheepishly. Ahem, I might be going through a second growth spurt. I have a big appetite. Yin Ruashi didn't reply, merely stood up quietly. Let's go. Get changed and we'll go out. I hurried back to my room, randomly picked out some casual clothes, and when I came out, Yin Ruashi was already waiting by the door. Today, she wore a simple white dress, her hair cascading casually over her shoulders. She seemed to have shed some of her usual icy arrogance, exuding an unexpected gentleness. I drove. I had assumed she would sit in the back, but she chose the front passenger seat. She didn't speak, just quietly watched the bustling traffic stream by outside the window. Luxury cars really are something else. Other drivers kept their distance, and we reached the city's most opulent plaza without any holdups. I followed behind her, watching as she headed towards the cinema. I was a bit puzzled. Weren't we supposed to be browsing the clothing stores? She seemed to notice my confusion, her red lips parting slightly. I want to watch a movie. Could you go buy some popcorn? The boss had spoken. Of course. I had to comply. No problem. After buying the popcorn, I entered the cinema with her. Sitting beside her, it suddenly occurred to me that I hadn't even asked what movie we were watching. It was strange. I'd never known her to watch movies before. What movie are we watching? I asked, munching on popcorn, turning to look at her. Well, the movie hadn't started yet, and just sitting there in silence felt awkward. Might as well eat something. Before sunrise. The lights dimmed just then. I couldn't make out the expression on her face, but her voice sounded a little odd, like a line from the heroine of some angsty teen novel. I didn't get it. I didn't know this movie, though. It's about a chance encounter between two strangers who spend a night sharing their dreams, beliefs, and views on life. They form a deep emotional connection, but ultimately, they still have to face the reality of parting at dawn. It showcases the immediacy and purity of love. I shrugged. The immediacy of love? Puffed. Not even a dog would buy that. Do you believe in the immediacy of love? Yin Ruashi turned to look at me, her gaze complex. I was utterly bewildered. What was she on about? After 2 hours of me mostly dozing off, she hits me with this? Seriously? A girl as ice-cold as you believes in the immediacy of love? Shouldn't you be out there, for the sake of that cherished white moonlight of yours, stamping out any such fleeting romance? But I still answer the boss's question honestly. I don't believe it. That kind of thing is best left for the movies. I don't believe it either. Let's go somewhere else. The movie ended just then, and the lights came up like the break of dawn. Yin Ruashi headed straight for the exit. Before I could react, I saw her retreating figure and quickly followed, clutching the popcorn. She walked so fast, just what you'd expect from a sharp, professional woman. Once out of the cinema, Yin Ruashi slowed her pace slightly. She tilted her head a little and asked me, "Next, why don't you join me for something to eat?" I nodded eagerly and followed her to an elegant Western restaurant in the mall. The restaurant was softly lit with soothing music playing. We sat opposite each other. Yin Ruashi ordered with practiced ease, while I sat there feeling a bit awkward. While waiting for the food, she gently fiddled with the cutlery on the table and suddenly said, "Jiang Chun, sometimes I really envy those people in the movies, how they can express their emotions so freely." I looked at her, somewhat surprised, not knowing how to respond. Just then, our food arrived. I ate silently, my mind mulling over her unusual behavior and words today. Yin Ruashi, however, ate very little. Her mind seemed to be elsewhere. After dinner, we strolled through the mall again. Passing by a jewelry store, Yin Ruashi stopped in front of the window, her gaze somewhat distant as she looked at the dazzling jewels. I stood beside her quietly, not daring to disturb her. After a moment, she turned to me and said, "Jiang Chun, what do you think someone should do if, one day, they suddenly realize their life feels incomplete without another person?" My heart tightened. I had a vague feeling her words were hinting at something, but I couldn't be sure. I chose my words carefully. Perhaps they should take a good look at their own heart and see how important that person really is to them. Yin Ruashi sighed softly and said no more. We continued to wander through the mall, but I felt the air around us growing increasingly heavy. 4. When Yin Ruashi came back from the mall yesterday, she uncharacteristically had a bit to drink. After getting home, she started to get a bit handsy. Is this a common ailment among drinkers? Of course, I righteously refused her. Seriously, how many women who can become CEOs are simple? I certainly didn't want to end up with a state-assigned job. Prison labor, pushing a sewing machine pedal at such a young age. Today was the class reunion. What was this? The first little get-together 5 years after graduation. The location was set in this city, and I happened to have time, so I had to go check it out. Arriving at the Star River Hotel, I took the elevator to the 6th floor. Before I even reached the door of the private room, the boisterous sound from inside drifted out. Jiang Chun. As soon as I entered the private room, the class monitor spotted me. He walked towards me with the same warm smile as before. I still remember back in college, I was just an ordinary lad from the countryside, as ordinary as could be. Apart from being good-looking, I had no other merits and rarely spoke to others in class. Plus, we were studying economics, and most people in the class were either rich or from influential families. I reckon few people would even recognize me now. Sure enough, apart from the class monitor, very few gazes turned my way. Class monitor, long time no see, still as dashing as ever. I went over and patted his shoulder. He had taken good care of me during college. Glad you could make it. Take a seat first. There's an important guest arriving later. All right, I found a seat in a corner. The corner was good. I could just focus on eating. As soon as I sat down, I heard a few people discussing, "Do you guys think Yin Ruashi, the class beauty, will come?" A guy wearing glasses who looked a bit like an elite spoke. I couldn't recall his name for a moment, but I did recognize the somewhat chubby guy talking to him. He Xiaobao. His family had some influence. She's a big-shot CEO, a very busy woman. How could she possibly come? He said gloomily. I think he even chased after Yin Ruashi back in college. I wasn't paying much attention back then. It was just something I'd heard. Sitting next to me was a sweet, cute girl from Sichuan province, Luo Shiyu, a member of my group back in college. I remembered her quite well. She looked at me. Jiang Chun, how's that company of yours doing? I gave a faint smile. It went bankrupt long ago. I'm not cut out for it. I'm better off as an employee. She was a little shocked. Oh, but I thought you were managing it quite well back then. How did? Before she could finish, the class monitor interrupted. Everyone, look who's here. He gestured with one hand, beckoning the person at the entrance. Like everyone else, I looked over, curious about who the guest was. It couldn't be Yun Ruashi, could it? I muttered to myself. Impossible. She's always so busy. Apart from that mad dash to the mall yesterday, I'd never seen her go anywhere for fun. But when the person appeared, I was a bit shocked. Yin Ruashi. Why was she here? She was wearing a white dress, simple yet exuding a cool elegance. Her delicate face had light makeup, and her hair was slightly pinned up. Yin Ruashi's appearance instantly drew everyone's attention. She walked slowly with graceful steps, as if she had an aura of her own. He Xiaobao's previously dejected face instantly lit up with a smile. He hurried over. Ruashi, you finally made it. I thought you wouldn't grace us with your presence. Yin Ruashi merely nodded slightly, polite yet distant. Her gaze swept across the crowd and finally landed on me, a flicker of imperceptible emotion in her eyes. Just then, the class monitor came over and said enthusiastically, Yin Ruashi, please sit here. Your presence today really brightens up our class reunion. Yin Ruashi softly said, thank you, and then, to my surprise, walked towards the corner where I was sitting. She looked at Luo Shiyu beside me and said softly, excuse me, may I sit here? I looked at the spot she was pointing to. Wasn't that where Luo Shiyu was sitting? Seriously? What was she up to? Doesn't Shiyu need a seat? Luo Shiyu seemed to sense something, quickly stood up and moved aside. It's fine, you can sit here. Everyone looked surprised, and I was just as shocked. Yin Ruashi, who usually dislikes such events, had actually come. This was a bit unlike her. She sat down next to me, leaned in, and whispered, did you come to this reunion just to date Luo Shiyu? I froze mid-sip, almost spitting out my water. What was wrong with Yin Ruashi? Saying something like that right off the bat. She was leaning a bit too close. I shifted away slightly. CEO Yun, this seems like my private business, doesn't it? When we signed the agreement, it clearly stated that we wouldn't interfere in each other's private lives once the time was up. For Yin Ruashi to bring this up now was rather strange. Her hand, which had been holding her cup, unconsciously tightened its grip. I vaguely sensed her emotional turmoil as she said, "We're not divorced yet. As I see it, you should prioritize me." I couldn't help but be taken aback, completely puzzled by her words. I didn't understand why she suddenly cared so much about this. "All right, CEO Yun." I was inconsiderate. I quickly replied softly, afraid she might cause more trouble. This reunion didn't have any of the dramatic show-off and get humiliated scenes I'd half expected. However, Yin Ruashi was acting increasingly strange. "Have some of this." After placing a piece of meat in my bowl, she subtly glanced up at Luo Xiu. The gesture was very discreet, but I still noticed. At this point, even I, as dense as I was, could tell she liked me. Yep, one of life's 3 great illusions. Our classmates at the same table saw her putting food on my plate, their expressions turning gossipy, their eyes darting between me and Yun Ruashi. "President Yun, I can serve myself." But then she leaned close to my ear, her voice soft. "Isn't it only natural for a wife to serve her husband?" Holy hell, my ears were about to get pregnant. Her voice was so smooth it sent a shiver down my spine, and I instinctively hunched my shoulders. When I turned to look, I caught a deeply hidden glint of amusement in her eyes. By the time we got home, it was already past 8 or 9. I had no idea what had gotten into Yun Ruashi tonight, between calling me wife and drinking like there was no tomorrow. Now, with alcohol flushing her cheeks a tempting shade of pink, her eyes hazy and unfocused, I carried her back to her room. Shaking my head, I muttered, "Seriously, drinking this much with a strange man around? Do you really trust me that much?" After taking off her shoes, I wiped her face with a damp cloth. Just as I was about to tuck her in, she suddenly grabbed my arm. I had been bending over to pull up the covers, so when she yanked me, I toppled right on top of her. Hey, this isn't my fault. You're the one who pulled me. Don't come after me when you wake up." I blurted, trying to explain myself to her sleeping form. But she clung to me like an octopus, her pretty face nuzzling into my neck. The warmth of her skin against mine sent a jolt through me. What the hell was this? Then, in a murmur, she whispered, "Don't go. I need you." Oh, so she was mistaking me for someone else. That made sense. Gently prying her arms off, I tucked her in properly and closed the door behind me. Standing in the living room, I gazed out the floor-to-ceiling window at the scattered stars outside and let out a long breath. Just one more day. Once I got the money, I could disappear. Tomorrow, I'll go check out some apartments, I told myself, psyching myself up. When sunlight streamed through the window and landed on me, I finally felt alive again. Another beautiful day. After tomorrow, I go find myself a sweet romance. It'd be a waste not to experience it at least once in this lifetime. After washing up, I checked the time, 9:30. Yin Ruashi should have left for work by now. Woohoo freedom. But when I opened the door, I froze. Yin Ruashi was still in the living room, staring straight at me. "President Yin, don't you have work?" "Today's not the weekend," I said casually, unable to keep a hint of cheerfulness out of my voice. After all, today was my last day. "You seem happy." She had on light makeup and was dressed in casual clothes, giving off a girl-next-door vibe, if you ignored the frosty expression on her face. I was just planning to check out some apartments today. The weather's nice." I sidestepped the topic, not wanting to annoy the boss. "I'll come with you. I know a few real estate developers." She stood up, her tone cool. My heart sank. No way in hell am I letting you tag along. If her precious ex ever found out where I was, I'd be dead meat. I was about to refuse, but she didn't give me the chance. Grabbing my arm, she pulled me toward the door. Lately, the physical contact had been increasing. This isn't normal. As usual, I drove, heading steadily toward the suburbs where the real estate market was booming. "You don't have to move out so soon," she said suddenly, her voice softer than usual. Even though she was looking out the window, her words reached me clearly. "The contract's ending, so I should go. Wouldn't it be awkward if you brought someone home and I was still there?" I chose my words carefully, not wanting to set off her unpredictable temper. "I don't have any other female friends," she stated coolly. Perhaps because it was the last day, I found myself unusually seeing Yun Ruashi from a friend's perspective. "Does CEO Yun have someone she likes abroad?" I chimed in, not wanting the silence to become awkward. "In the country," she said, turning back to look at me, her gaze somewhat intense. Then why didn't CEO Yun ask him when signing the agreement back then? I was a bit curious. The reason she'd given was that her family was pressuring her, but after getting the marriage certificate, she hadn't gone to see her family. Instead, she took my marriage certificate. All right, she still hadn't returned it to me. She looked at me. Before she could finish, the car driving normally ahead of us suddenly changed lanes, speeding straight towards us, showing no signs of slowing down. I instinctively yanked the steering wheel to the right, but Yun Ruashi, in this critical moment, as if driven by some mysterious force, shot out her hand with lightning speed. Her fingers clamped onto my hand like iron pincers. Her hand was ice cold and trembling slightly, yet it carried an irresistible force, wrenching the steering wheel I was turning right back to the left. In an instant, there was a deafening, earth-shattering bang. The sound was like Thor roaring angrily in my ears, making them ring. The out-of-control car, like a crazed primordial beast, slammed violently into us. The car body shook violently. I only felt the world spinning around me, as if the entire universe was collapsing at that moment, and my consciousness gradually faded into chaos. When I woke up again, I was already in the hospital. Thanks to Yin Ruashi's car being reinforced, I only suffered minor injuries. Thinking of Yin Ruashi, I quickly tried to get up. The moment the accident happened, she had put herself in harm's way. An indescribable feeling welled up inside me. I got Yin Ruashi's room number from a nurse and went in. She was lying on the hospital bed, her face a little pale. The doctor said it wasn't very serious, but she would need to rest and recuperate for some time. I looked at her pale, yet still exquisite face, and for a moment, I didn't know what to think. If the car hadn't been reinforced, would she be dead already? If I hadn't been driving and chatting, would this not have happened? It was clearly just a contract marriage, so why did she risk her life like that? My mind was a mess. I couldn't find a reason. People are like that. The more something is offered, the less you want it, but when you're about to lose it, you hesitate. Hesitate? Perhaps. A young man might remember a beautiful girl for his entire life, just as a middle-aged man might be deeply impressed by a woman casually lighting a cigarette for him. Now, Yin Ruashi had succeeded. She had succeeded in making me remember her. As long as I drive in the future, I won't be able to avoid thinking of her, this woman who had given me the chance to live. I didn't know if this was right or wrong, but looking at her actions over the past 6 months, I had to admit one fact. She had feelings for me. It's just that I didn't want to be the third party. It wasn't appropriate to ask before, and now, just when I could find out the reason, this happened. I'd take it one step at a time. First, I'd take care of her until she was discharged. I had at least that much conscience. A few hours later, she slowly stirred awake. She stared at me without blinking, seeming to let out a sigh of relief. Seeing her expression, I couldn't help but ask, "Should I contact your parents?" "Don't worry. I'll take care of you until you're discharged." She shook her head and spoke softly. I don't. All right. The doctor said you should try not to talk for now. Rest well. I tucked her in and got up to prepare some dinner for her. Time flew by. Half a month later, she could be discharged. After returning to the villa, I was in my room packing my things. I still had to leave eventually. We'd spent more than 2 years together. I just consider us as having become friends. When I asked her before why she didn't sign the agreement with someone she liked, she never said a word, just looked at me quietly. Of course, I wouldn't be arrogant enough to think I was the person she liked before. After all, in our 4 years of university, I barely spoke to her. I was simply packing my luggage. There wasn't much, just a few sets of ordinary clothes, and that incredibly precious photograph, holding warm memories of me and my grandfather. I carefully placed them into the suitcase one by one, then gently closed the bedroom door. With that soft click, this contract-like life was about to draw to a close, and I was eagerly looking forward to stepping into an unknown and new chapter of my life. Arriving in the living room, I saw her sitting quietly on the sofa, not saying a word. The air around her seemed to thicken with her silence. Under my diligent care for many days, her body had gradually recovered. Her once paper-pale complexion now had a slight flush of color, like the first touch of new green quietly blooming on a branch after a harsh winter, faint yet full of life. I had originally thought that, having just recovered, she would go to the company, but I never expected her to silently follow me back here. She slowly stood up, her gaze fixed on me, and said softly, "Leaving now? Look at you, all sweaty. Have some water." I nodded slightly, took the cup she handed me, and drank it all in one gulp. Indeed, after rushing about, my throat was parched. After finishing the water, I gently placed the cup back, then pulled up my suitcase and walked towards the door with firm steps. Looking back at her as I said, "Let's go, Ruashi. The Civil Affairs Bureau should be open by now." She still didn't respond, just stared at me quietly, unblinkingly. However, for some reason, the moment our eyes met, a wave of discomfort suddenly washed over my body. Dizziness and vertigo surged like a tide, and the world before my eyes began to spin like an out-of-control top. Before I fainted, I saw Yun Ruashi's calm face and her slightly reddened eyes, revealing a hint of madness. "I'm done for," was my last thought. When I woke up again, my head was still groggy, like a muddle of paste, and my thoughts were sluggish and confused. All around was boundless darkness, like thick ink, enveloping me, oppressively so. But I could clearly feel myself lying on a bed, my nostrils filled with that familiar scent, hers. I struggled to sit up. The moment my wrist moved, the crisp sound of chains suddenly echoed in the silent room. This sound, like a clap of thunder, instantly cleared my muddled head. No, what is this? Imprisonment? I suppressed my overwhelming confusion and suspicion, raising my voice to call out twice, "Ruashi, Ruashi." Click, a sharp sound broke the silence, and glaring light instantly blazed, like a sharp sword cleaving through the thick, heavy darkness. Yun Ruashi glided in, her steps light. However, her attire now was vastly different from her usual. A diaphanous silk robe, as thin as cicada wings, clung to her body, her delicate, fair skin partially visible beneath it, inviting conjecture. And behind her, a brilliant silver glint flickered, stinging my eyes. "Ruashi, what are you doing?" "Playing a game." I forced a smile, trying to ease the somewhat tense and oppressive atmosphere with this joke. But she seemed to turn a deaf ear, her steps unceasing, slowly approaching me, one by one. Until she was close, her cherry-red, delicate lips parted slightly, her voice carrying an almost imperceptible tremor and a hint of sorrow. "Jiang Chun, why do you always want to leave me? Clearly, we are husband and wife." She slowly placed her hand on my face, gently caressing it. Her actions were gentle, but the words she spoke made me break out in a cold sweat. "No, how is this so much like a Yander scene from a novel?" Ruashi, we just have an agreement. If your white moonlight finds out about this, how could he still like you?" I hurriedly spoke, interrupting her actions. Her hand was already on my stomach. "How can you not understand? The one I've always liked is you." She leaned close to my ear, her tone soft, yet it exploded in my heart like a clap of thunder. "What the hell? You gotta be kidding." "No, Ruashi, this isn't a joke." I was starting to sweat profusely. "It's okay, you'll see my true feelings in a moment." After she finished speaking, she popped an unknown blue pill into my mouth. "I'm done for." After a memorable interlude, she lay beside me, her fingers gently tracing circles on my chest. "Now you believe me, don't you?" Her face was flushed with a captivating blush as she looked at me adoringly. I looked at that plum blossom, my mind a complete blank. Why would you do this? We don't seem to have known each other before. I didn't understand. What was the meaning of her actions? This was beyond my comprehension. As I thought, you've forgotten. A trace of resentment flickered in her eyes. What, is this some classic plot? Poor kid saves rich girl from kidnappers, and rich girl grows up to repay the favor. I looked into her eyes and voiced my thoughts. "Do you know how I got this scar?" She lifted the blanket, revealing a glimpse of her fair skin. I saw a scar on her shoulder, looking like a burn. "How did you get it?" I was completely baffled. "Red Star Orphanage, Xiaohua," she murmured softly. My heart skipped a beat. No way, it really was such a cliched plot. Damn it, I actually went through that. I had stayed at the Red Star Orphanage before Grandpa adopted me. Is this fate? How did you recognize me? I turned my head to look at the opposite wall. Of course, I investigated you. It might seem a bit fantastical, but that's how I've always remembered you. Do you know? I could have endured the darkness if I had never seen the light. When my family found me and brought me back, They already had 2 other children. They didn't care about a missing girl like me at all. Returning there, apart from being well-fed and warmly clothed, they disliked me, thinking I was bad luck. But it didn't matter. Grandma cared about me. So, step by step, I tripped them up. Now, I have lots and lots of money. Can you please not leave me? As she spoke, her eyes glistened with tears. I sighed. Remarried parents, preference for sons over daughters. This was a full stack of buffs. Then why didn't you say so earlier? I looked at her, somewhat puzzled. Because I have a problem. Every time I see you, I can't help but want to lock you up. Ife said, this is unequal in love, so I've been undergoing treatment. I only found you 2 years ago after I got better. It's just that when you were about to leave just now, I really couldn't hold back anymore. She lowered her head like a child who had done something wrong. Suddenly, she looked up again, a light shining in her eyes. Chingu, I secretly went to see Grandpa. I told him I was your wife. Grandpa was so happy then. He even told me to treat you well. She tilted her head up slightly, like a child seeking praise. You know, when I saw you talking to Luo Shiyu, I almost lost control. She lowered her head again, tears welling in her eyes. So, I decided I had to do something crazy where you would really leave. I don't know why you always think I like someone else, but I've always liked you. You are my white moonlight. Chingu, please don't leave me, okay? She embraced me, her tears falling onto my chest, hot as fire, searing my soul. I was stunned, momentarily unsure how to respond. From wanting to leave when our agreement expired, to this current maelstrom of emotions. My heart was on a roller coaster. The Buddha says it takes 100 lifetimes of cultivation to share the same boat, and 1,000 to share a pillow. Perhaps this is fate. End.